Could Derek Carr and Davante Adams be joining forces once again, this time in the city of Pittsburgh, to join the Pittsburgh Steelers and try to win a Super Bowl here in the Steel City in 2025? Welcome into Steelers Talk. I'm your host, Jack Sperry. Today we're going to be talking about the latest news and rumors surrounding the Pittsburgh Steelers, and most of it's going to be revolving around these two players. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button if you haven't already, and get down there in the comments section to get today's show started. Would you sign Derek Carr if it means that the Steelers also get to sign Davante Adams? Let me know down there in the comments section with a yes or a no. Would you sign Carr to be the next quarterback of this team if it means Adams is a Pittsburgh Steeler? So let's start with Davante Adams here, guys, because yesterday he went on the K. Adams podcast, and he was asked directly if he would play for Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin, and he said 100% I would, and then he elaborated on why he's a fan of Mike Tomlin. This is what Davante Adams had to say. I love Mike. I think anytime you have a coach that's a player's coach and you can tell they've got a way with their guys, those types of coaches, whether they coach me or not, they always win me over. And listen, man, I do think the New York Jets are likely to release Adams. Adams can kind of determine whether or not he wants to return to the Jets, because next year he has like a $38 million cap hit, and the only way that it really makes sense for the Jets to bring him back is if they restructure his contract. So, and Adams needs to agree to that. So he can either say, all right, I'm going to restructure my contract, return to the New York Jets, or he can pretty much demand that they let him go. And they take on around $8 million in dead cap, and they save around $30 million in cap space for 2024. So I do think Adams will hit the open market before free agency this year. And I do think that Davante Adams, based on his film, based on his production this past year, I do think he's still a legit number one receiver in the National Football League today. He is 32 years old. He's still got really good size, 6'1", 216 pounds. And the thing about Davante, what makes him special, is that at that size, he moves so easy. He moves so fluidly. And he's still one of the best route runners in the National Football League. And I think that he would immediately be this team's number one wide receiver, even over George Pickens, if he ended up signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers. You can take a look at his production over the last 4 seasons in the National Football League, over 1,000 yards in every single season. And remember, guys, it's not like he had the best quarterbacks throwing him the football. Aaron Rodgers had a down year this past year. Guys like Jimmy Garoppolo, Aiden O'Connell, and he's still averaging over a first down per reception. He's still putting up the touchdown numbers, over 100 catches in most of these seasons as well. And I do think Davante is still very, very capable of being a true, legit number one receiver in the National Football League in future seasons. Also, I think that, DA has been very complimentary of George Pickens. So if the plan is to keep George Pickens and to try to kind of rehab his personality, maybe his behavioral issues, his punctuality, his professionalism, I think bringing in a guy like Davante Adams, who's an admirer of George Pickens' game and kind of be a mentor for GP, could be very beneficial for the young receiver. This is what Davante Adams had to say about George Pickens' game earlier or a while back on a podcast previously. George is a hell of a talent. He's a unique player. He's got a very unorthodox style, and I've told him I'm a fan of his game ever since college. He's a dog. I've always been a fan of him. His physicality coming off the ball and how he just throws the DB on the ground. He comes off like he's doing a release, then he just shoves or throws them on the ground. That's always been fun to watch. And like I said, guys, I think if you bring in Davante Adams, that's a person for George Pickens that he probably respects. I know George respects DA. He's mentioned him as a guy that he's watched film on, as somebody that he tries to model his game after. So if you bring in Davante Adams and you make this the new dynamic duo at wide receiver for Pittsburgh, I mean, I think that there's a reason to believe that DA could get GP back on the straight and narrow. DA is one of the most the consummate professionals in the National Football League, and maybe he can teach George Pickens to be that type of player moving forward here in Pittsburgh. And I do think, Adams is one of my favorite free agency targets for the Pittsburgh Steelers this year because of that. And I absolutely think that, even if they end up trading George Pickens away, Davante Adams could absolutely be the type of guy here that does a good job for the Pittsburgh Steelers as their number one receiver and can be their kind of guy here. And, if you trade away George Pickens and you bring in Davante Adams, you can still draft a really, really good receiver early in the draft, someone like an Emeka Ibuka, maybe Luther Burden III, to somebody that's younger but can develop alongside Davante Adams. And, you definitely have options at the wide receiver position if you decide to go with Davante Adams in free agency this year. But the question here is, which quarterback should the Pittsburgh Steelers pair with Davante if they bring him in? All right, and coming up here, we're going to be talking about some of those options, including Aaron Rodgers and Derek Carr, because these are the two guys that Davante Adams likes to play with. All right, these are his boys. All right, even during the rumors around the trade last year, the report came out that he wanted to play with either Aaron Rodgers or Derek Carr. Of course, he ended up getting traded to the Jets and not the Steelers. But I think it would help the Steelers' chances of getting Davante Adams if they end up signing one of these two quarterbacks in NFL free agency this year. So let me know down there in the comments section, which one would you rather bring in? Type AR if you'd rather go with Aaron Rodgers, or type DC if you'd rather go with Derek Carr. This will be the pinned comment on today's show. So in just a second here, we'll talk about our sponsor today at Mando. And while I'm talking about Mando, let me know down there in the comments section which quarterback you would rather bring to the Steel City. And with that, let's talk about our sponsor today at Mando. And personally, guys, I don't make New Year's resolutions anymore because I never seem to deliver on them. But something I'm definitely bringing with me into the new year's, my favorite whole-body deodorant products on the market with today's sponsor, Mando. Mando's whole selection of products is safe to use anywhere on your body and are clinically proven to block odor all day and control odor for up to 72 hours. Take advantage of Mando's special offer just for Steelers Talk listeners, which gives new customers $5 off their best-selling starter pack with code CHAT at shopmando.com. And let me tell you guys, I have this bourbon leather body wash here. I've got the little bottle you guys can get in the starter pack here. I've got a whole bottle of it at my apartment here in Dallas, Texas. And I use it every single day because sometimes it's long hours here at Chat Sportsman, especially during the draft when we're here for 72 hours over the span of 4 days. It's absolutely crazy, and I don't have a ton of time to shower. Mando keeps me smelling fresh throughout that entire period with their body wash, and I absolutely recommend you try it out. Also, Mando's starter pack is perfect for new customers because it comes with a solid stick of deodorant, cream tube deodorant, 2 free products of your choice like mini body wash, or you guys can do the deodorant wipes, which are highly recommended as well. Plus, you get free shipping, so there's no reason not to try it out today. As a special offer for our listeners, new customers get $5 off a starter pack with our exclusive code. That equates to over 40% off your starter pack when you use code CHAT at shopmando.com. That's shopmando.com. Please support our show and tell them that we sent you. Smell fresher, stay drier, and boost your confidence from head to toe with Mando Whole Body Deodorant today. So I do think that Aaron Rodgers would want to play for Pittsburgh coming up in this free agency period. I think if he's not going to retire and he is going to come back for the 2025 season, the Steelers technically have a win-now roster with a good defense. Hopefully they can get the run game going, and maybe Rodgers thinks, maybe if I want to make one more push to get another Lombardi trophy, maybe Pittsburgh playing for Mike Tomlin, all these different things can help him do that. He's also been very complimentary of Mike Tomlin. Another thing he has in common there with his buddy Davante Adams. This is what Rodgers had to say about Tomlin on the Pat McAfee show about 3 years ago. I'm a big Mike Tomlin fan. I've been for a long time. I like the way he speaks about his team. I like the way he goes about his business. I like his confidence. I've heard nothing but good things from the people who have played there. I like Mike Tomlin. Now, here's the thing, man. I'm not sure if Tomlin would bring Rodgers in. It does seem like Tomlin likes Justin Fields, and I'm not sure if Rodgers is a true upgrade over Fields at this point, especially given his production with the New York Jets last year. Plus, Ryan Clark is very, very close with Mike Tomlin. Obviously, he's a former Steeler, used to play for Tomlin back during the Super Bowl years here. And, if you know anything about the Ryan Clark and Aaron Rodgers business, Clark hates Aaron Rodgers, all right? So he's definitely in Tomlin's ear, and he's saying he's a terrible locker room guy. Don't bring him in, all these different things. So I'm just not sure if Mike Tomlin would be wanting to bring in Aaron Rodgers, especially after this kind of number and these kinds of production from Aaron Rodgers here in 2024 with the New York Jets. Remember, this is with Garrett Wilson. This is with Davante Adams. This is with Breece Hall. This is in his style of offense with his hand-picked offensive coordinator. 27th in EPA per play. That's absolutely atrocious. 27th in adjusted completion percentage. And it's not like he was bombing the ball down the field, right? He was 40th in average depth of target at just 6.7 yards. Lots of screen passes, lots of dump offs. And despite that, he still only had the 18th highest catchable ball percentage. Then the yards per attempt were down to 28, so it wasn't very efficient. And, he was able to protect the football. He's always been able to protect the football with a top 5 turnover-worthy play percentage, but he wasn't even in the top half of the league in big-time throw percentage. So I'm just not sure if the juice is worth the squeeze anymore with Aaron Rodgers. And, I think that Pittsburgh could probably do worse than him at QB1. He does still have very good touch on his deep ball. I think he's better than Russell Wilson at targeting the middle of the field, so he might be the better fit for Arthur Smith's offense. And obviously, he's got a ton of experience in the playoffs, all these different things that the Steelers look for in their starting quarterback nowadays because they are trying to win now. But I do think that there are probably better options out there on the market than Aaron Rodgers. And personally, I think one of those options could be Saints quarterback Derek Carr, who I think is a legit possibility for the Steelers to consider at QB1 this offseason. You can take a look at Carr's kind of profile here. 33 years old. He's got great size at 6'3", 218 pounds, so he can see over the middle of the field, unlike Russell Wilson. His play style, I think, is an excellent fit for what Arthur Smith wants to do at quarterback. We'll talk about that in a little bit here. But also, because the Saints might be letting Carr go and they might be paying him quite a bit of guaranteed money this year, he might take a team-friendly deal to come to Pittsburgh. All right, so the Saints can save $30 million in cap space this offseason if they put a post-June 1st designation on a cut for Derek Carr. Right now, the Saints are $52 million over the cap for the 2025 season. So saving that $30 million by cutting Carr could certainly help them out. Plus, it seems like the fan base kind of wants to move on from Carr after a very disappointing season in New Orleans this past year. And right now, even if they cut Carr, though, the New Orleans Saints have to give Derek Carr $20 million next year, which is fully guaranteed on his contract. It was a roster bonus, and then that is his guaranteed money on his salary. So if they let him go, the Saints are going to be paying Derek Carr $20 million regardless. So that could mean that Carr could sign a very team-friendly deal here to play with the Pittsburgh Steelers somewhere around the range of $10 to $15 million, something around that range, which is about what the Steelers would pay for to bring back Justin Fields. Take a look at my scouting report for Derek Carr, and there's a lot to like about Carr's game, all right? He's limited because I think his pocket presence isn't all that great. The playmaking out of structure certainly isn't elite either, and the mobility isn't going to be anything to write home about. But in terms of being an in-structure playmaker and an executor of an offense, he's got really good size. He throws over the middle of the field with really good efficiency. And like Russell Wilson, he's got a really good arm, and he can throw the ball with some phenomenal touch down the field. And his mental processing, I think, is a step up from Russell Wilson. So I do think Derek Carr is a good starting quarterback that's more of an executor type than a playmaker, but I think he fits what Arthur Smith wants to do here in Pittsburgh. And then if it means you can get Davante Adams as your number one receiver and you're getting Derek Carr on a team-friendly deal, I think that the good things about this potential signing are continuing to stack up here. Take a look at his advanced numbers. Unlike Aaron Rodgers, who was down in like the 20s and wasn't really doing a whole lot of good stuff, the Saints were pretty darn good when Derek Carr was in there, man. 7th in EPA per play, 6th in adjusted completion percentage. He was around league average and average depth of target, but that's perfectly fine with me. His yards per attempt efficiency was top 10. The big time throw percentage was top 10 as well. The average time to throw is, better than Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. I can tell you that right now. And then he's also much better at handling pressure than Russell Wilson and Justin Fields are. He was second in pressure to sack rate, which is the amount of pressures that turned into sacks. So he does a good job getting rid of the football, not taking sacks, not taking negative plays, and really keeping the offense on schedule. You guys can take a look at the boom and bust balance for Derek Carr and how he balances making big plays versus the big negative plays that he takes. He was 7th in boom percentage, which is the percent of plays with over a 1.0 EPA. So that's an excellent score for EPA on a singular play. And then the bust percentage, which is the percentage of plays of a -1 EPA or lower. He ranked top 10 in that one as well. So the differential was 6. So in terms of keeping that balance between making big plays and not getting too many negative plays, this guy's one of the best in football at doing just that. And in my opinion, Derek Carr does a lot of the same things that Russ does well, throwing the ball off his primary read, deep down the field with touch and accuracy. Carr does those things too, but then he expands on some of the things that Russell Wilson doesn't do well. that I think can elevate this offense to another level. You guys can compare the strengths of these guys. They're both very accurate. They both can make those big-time throws into tight windows down the field. They both do a pretty decent job at handling turnovers. The downfield EPA, both of them ranked in the top 5 when throwing the ball down the field this past season. And then when it comes to being a clutch quarterback, we all know Russell Wilson's history being a clutch QB. He's tied for 9th all-time with 40 game-winning drives. Derek Carr's right behind him with 35, which ranks 13th all-time. So I think that, the strengths are very comparable between these two quarterbacks, but where Derek Carr might improve on Russell Wilson are on things like throwing the ball over the middle of the field, getting the football out faster, right? Russ's average time to throw ranked 28th last year. Derek Carr ranked 16th. That's a pretty significant step up. Handling pressure as well, I think, is something that Derek Carr does at a better job. Russ's pressure to sack rate was 33rd in the league last year. Derek Carr's was 2nd. So that's a big step up. And then their EPA per attempt when under pressure, it's a lot better for Derek Carr, who ranked 11th, whereas Russ ranked 25th. And then when it comes to Derek Carr versus Justin Fields, I mean, it's not even close when it comes to where these guys rank in many of the key advanced metrics. EPA per play, way higher for Derek Carr. Yards per attempt, way higher for Derek Carr. Big time throw percentage, way higher for Derek Carr. Same thing with turnover-worthy play percentage, and then the average time to throw, where Justin Fields takes the most time of pretty much any quarterback in the league to get the ball out. Derek Carr is pushing the ball down the field more often than Fields is, and he's getting the ball out faster. So if you're looking at which quarterback can operate this offense more efficiently, I think the answer to that question is Derek Carr. And like I mentioned before, guys, I think Derek is an excellent fit for what Arthur Smith wants out of his quarterbacks, all right? Art wants somebody that can execute the offense, rip those in breakers over the middle of the field past his first read. That's something neither Justin Fields or Russell Wilson really did a good job of this year. But I think that Derek Carr is similar to a former quarterback that Arthur Smith had in Ryan Tannehill. And listen, we all know Ryan Tannehill isn't the best quarterback in the National Football League, but he had a very, very good season back in 2021 with Arthur Smith, where one season he actually had 33 touchdowns with Arthur Smith in an offense that had the number 1 seed in the AFC. So I definitely think that Ryan Tannehill was a type of quarterback that had success in this offense because he could execute the offense and he could get the ball to the middle of the field with efficiency. And I think Carr is an even better version of Ryan Tannehill, in my opinion. He's got a stronger arm. He throws with better touch. I think he handles pressure better than Tannehill does. And if the Steelers can pair Derek Carr with Davante Adams and then a really good run game along with the very expensive defense that they have here in Pittsburgh, I honestly think Derek Carr, you can make an argument, would be the best possible option for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2025. Now, that doesn't mean that Derek Carr is going to be the savior of this team. And I don't think if you sign him, you're expecting him to completely carry the offense. This offense still needs to be run through the run game. And this offseason, the big thing the Steelers need to take care of is fixing the offensive line and fixing the running back position so that this run game can go from bottom 5 to top 5 in the league next year. If you do that, I think Derek Carr can have a ton of success here with the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, Carr might not be like the sexy option. He might not have the most aura like Justin Fields does. I get it. Justin looks great in the uniform. He looks cool when he's running around and making plays out of structure. But Derek Carr, I think, is just the more reliable, more safe. And I think at the end of the day, he's the best option for the Pittsburgh Steelers to fix their quarterback position this year and give this team the best chance to win in 2025. Now, to be fair here, I think my one concern with bringing Derek Carr in is how will he handle the elements in December and January in the AFC North. It's been well documented that Carr has not played his best football in cold weather football games, and that's going to be a question that I think is more than fair to have a concern about with him, because he's somebody that's not accustomed to playing in cold weather. He's played in Las Vegas, obviously, and in Oakland, where it's not very cold very often. They played in New Orleans, a dome team, in a warm state. So for him to go from those teams and Fresno State in college to Pittsburgh and have to play in Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Cincinnati outdoors late in the season, I think that's more than a fair concern to have about Derek Carr heading into next year. That'll be it for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for sticking with me to the end. This one was a pretty in-depth one, so thank you guys for sticking with me to the very end. That makes you a real one if you're still watching this video, so make sure you identify yourself down there in the comment section. by typing real one for me down there in the comment section so I can see who my real ones are. And don't forget to click that subscribe button. We got more Steelers offseason content coming your way during the Steelers Talk offseason blitz here on the channel. So make sure you guys click that subscribe button to never miss a video.